Yo guys, what's up? It's Brendan from Modern to Me, and today we're going to be touching on arrays in Java. Arrays are super important. I say everything's super important, but this is super important too. Arrays can be used for like storing items and inventories in games and a whole bunch of other important stuff. So what is an array? If you remember arrays from like maybe it was even all the way back to like second grade math class, you think like you'd have an array of like 5 by 5 dots and they'd tell you that that was an array or something like that, I'm pretty sure. But in Java, you can do that. You can have arrays that are kind of like 2D, but we're going to be starting more simple with just simple one-dimensional linear arrays. So what you actually have here is an array. An array is just a set of data of a certain kind. So right here, this is just a list of strings. So this could be any number of string arguments that you are passing in. So you can create arrays for any data type. You can create these sets for any kind that you'd like. Let's just start simple. We're just gonna have an array of ints for now. So how do you create an array? So what you do is you type the kind of variable you want to create the array for. So let's go int. And then what you do is instead of naming your variable right away, you type this, like you see for this string right here, you type the brackets. You type a opening bracket, closing bracket. And then what you do is you type the name of the array that you want to create. So let's call it num set, your set of numbers. Okay, and then you type the equal sign like you normally do. And now here is where it gets a little bit tricky. Not tricky, just different. Instead of like you're normally used to for defining ints, you just type the number and then semicolon, you're good to go. Back in the good old days where coding was easy. Well, now what you do is when you have your array, you're defining more than one variable. So what you do is to start the set of variables you want to be in your array, you type an opening brace, and then let's say we want our values just to be like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So what you do is you type 2. That's our first data point, and then comma, and then you follow each data point with the point that you want, and then the value that you want, I should say, and just a comma. So we want 4, then another comma, then 6, then another comma, 8, then another comma, and then 10. The spacing doesn't really matter. I type a space after every comma. That's just personal preference. You can do whatever you want with that. That's just what I think looks the nicest. Okay, and then you still have to put the semicolon at the end, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so this is how you define an array. You don't if you define the array like this, you don't have to tell the compiler, you don't have to put a number in here or anything like this would be 5. We wouldn't have to put like 5 to tell our compiler that it's 5 points. We don't have to know that ahead of time. You just type all the points that you need in these curly brackets and it does the rest for you. So that's really useful. It's really nice that you can do that. Arrays are really handy, trust me. Okay, and now what you do is you have all of these points in this array, right? You have all these ints in this array, but you don't just let them sit there. You want to do something with them, right? So how do you access them? Because if you can't just type like print numset, I mean that wouldn't really work. You can't just like directly say like numset plus or equal to like 5. Like that doesn't make sense because numset's an array. Numset is actually not an int. So how do you refer to these integers that are stored in this array? What you do is you type the name of the array. Obviously you have to refer to the array, and then you type the bracket again, the square brackets, and in here you put the index of the element that you are trying to access. That sounds like a mouthful, but it's actually not that bad. But there is one catch to it. So we know that this is our first element, this is the second one, this is the third element, this is the fourth, and this is the fifth. When I say element, that's just each integer in your array is an element. Each like data point in your array is an element. So this was the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Okay, we got that. But computer programming languages generally don't have the first data point be represented by 1. let's see, if we print, let's just test this out so you see what I'm saying. If we print, oops, gotta do system.out.println. If we print out the first point in the data, we get 4. And that's the second data point, isn't it? Well, actually what they do is, for some reason, they have every array start at 0. So now if we print this, we get 2. Okay, that's starting to make more sense now. That's kind of why that happens. So that's good to know. It's good to know that they start at 0. And you can only go up to 4. So we can print the 4th data point and we'd get 10. You cannot type this. That is going to crash your program. For the heck of it, let's just see what happens. Uh-oh. Yep. That's not good. You do not want that to happen. So don't let your array go out of bounds. That's actually what this error is called. Array index out of bounds exception. That's just saying that there is no such thing as this 5th element of this numset array. That does not exist, and you should not try to type that. Okay, so that's pretty cool with these arrays. You can alter each element of the array like you would any normal integer. So if you go numset 3, and for some reason you decide that you want to throw people off, and instead of having it be 6, or yeah, instead of it being 6, you want it to be actually falling victim to the own thing. 6 would be the second element, and you'd want to change that to 5. You can do that, and if we print out all of the array values, let's do that. This might take a while. Numset 0. Okay, I'm just going to copy and paste this. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we do 1, 2, 3, 4. This will print out all of our elements. And so you can see that when you change it, that this 3rd element right here is changed to 5. So you can alter each element and reference each element just like a normal integer. So that's really nice. Okay, let's take out all of this. Now, I just showed you the first way to define an array, where you don't know how many data points you need in your array, but you know exactly what you want to put in them, so you put those values in the curly brackets, and that's nice and all. But a lot of times, you might not know exactly what values are going into your array at that point in time. Well, what you can do is, if you know what size you want them to be, you type this new keyword again. This new is what we did to define our scanner. Like I said, you always use the new keyword to allocate memory, is actually what it does. So it allocates memory for an instance of a class. Well, not only does it do that, but it can also allocate memory for an array. But the catch is, you have to know how big you want the array to be, how many elements you want the array to be. In other words, how many data points you want the array to be. So we're going to go new, and then instead of typing the class name, you type the data data type again, excuse me. So we type new int, and then we put more square brackets, and in here we have to say how large we want the array to be. But this is kind of where it gets confusing a little bit again. If we want our if we want our array to have 10 elements, we type 10. Now you might be thinking that, well, wouldn't that create 11 elements because you said it starts at 0? It does start at 0, but when you're allocating the array size, you always put the actual number of elements you want. And then after you type this, you would have elements with the indices of 0 to 9. So it's kind of weird. I know you allocate the space by putting this new, you're allocating space for 10 integers, but then you can only reference them for 0 through 9. So that's kind of how that works. And then once you have this, you have to make sure that you assign all of these elements in your array with values. You can't try to access them before they have values. So you'd have to make sure that you go through and you assign numset 0 a value. You could set that to 10, and then you have numset, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then all the way up to like 9. You have to make sure that 9 has a value. You could put 9, you could go like 100 67. It can be whatever you want. So you have to make sure that you give them all values before you try to access them, or else you're going to get some weird error like I showed you. I don't know if it shouldn't necessarily be the array out of bounds, but you'll get some weird error during runtime, which is never good for your users of your program. So that's the gist of arrays. We're going to be working with them a little bit more in the upcoming episodes, where we kind of ease the process for arrays, and that might not make any sense, but join me in the next tutorial and I'll explain it. I'll see you guys there.